to our amazing Infidelity Tales Lab family. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Your support means the world. Quick question. Where are you listening from today? Which city? Which country? Drop it below. Now let's dive into today's story. The September sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Laurel Cummings' corner office at Pierce and Morgan Advertising. She adjusted her Cartier watch, a gift from her husband Rodney on their 15th anniversary, and pulled up her carefully maintained alternate calendar. The screen showed multiple client meetings scheduled for today, their 20th anniversary, all fabricated with meticulous attention to detail. Her phone buzzed with a message from Kurt Kennedy. "Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful. Got us the best table at Skyline." A smile played across her lips as she typed back. "Neither can I. Just need to handle the husband first." The thought of Rodney barely stirred any guilt anymore. 20 years of marriage had become mundane, predictable. He'd suggested Le Maison for their anniversary dinner, the same restaurant where they'd had their first date. The same wine, the same reminiscing about their courtship, the same gentle kisses. Boring. Her office phone rang. "Mrs. Norman?" Her assistant Sarah's voice came through. "Dr. Norman is on line 1. Laurel clicked the speakerphone button. "Hi, honey." "Hey, sweetheart." Rodney's warm, confident voice filled her office. "Just confirming our reservation for tonight. 7:30, right?" She straightened in her chair, switching to her stressed executive tone. "About that, the Johnson account is giving me a massive headache. They're threatening to pull their entire portfolio unless we revise the entire campaign by tomorrow morning. On our anniversaries?" There was a pause, and she could picture him in his office at Metropolitan Children's Hospital, probably still in his scrubs between surgeries. "That's quite an emergency. I know, I'm so sorry." She infused her voice with just the right amount of regret. "They're our biggest client, Rod. I can't risk losing them. Could we maybe do tomorrow night instead? Same place, same time." "Of course, I understand." His response was measured, professional, exactly as she'd expected. "Do what you need to do. I'll call Le Maison and reschedule. You're the best, honey. I'll make it up to you tomorrow, I promise." After hanging up, Laurel opened her desk drawer and pulled out a sleek black iPhone, her secret line for Kurt. They'd met 6 months ago at a charity gala where he'd been the keynote speaker. His real estate development company had just completed a major downtown project, and he'd commanded the room with his charisma and ambition. "All set for tonight," she texted. "Husband properly managed." Kurt's response was immediate. "Perfect. Wear that red dress I love. The one that shows off those legs." She glanced at the garment bag hanging behind her door, containing exactly that dress. At 45, Laurel knew she'd turn heads. Regular Pilates sessions and carefully maintained highlights kept her looking a decade younger. Kurt, at 35, made her feel even younger still. Her office door opened, and Sarah stepped in with a stack of files. "Mrs. Norman, the creative team is ready for the Phillips presentation. Sarah, I'll need you to stay late tonight. The Johnson account needs emergency revisions." The assistant's brow furrowed. The Johnson account? But they just approved everything last week. They were thrilled with the campaign. Well, now they're not. Laurel's tone turned sharp. "And I need it as my cover story, so let's keep that between us." Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her disapproval was evident. She'd been Laurel's assistant for 3 years and had gradually become aware of her boss's late meetings and mysterious phone calls. "Yes, Mrs. Norman." "Will that be all?" "Yes." "And Sarah? Remember our understanding about discretion." After Sarah left, Laurel began preparing for the evening ahead. Her next few hours were carefully orchestrated. The Phillips presentation would end by 5, giving her time to change and meet Kurt by 7. She told Rodney the client emergency would keep her until at least midnight, providing plenty of buffer time. Across town at Skyline Restaurant, Maribel Farrell smoothed down her navy cocktail dress as the maitre d' led her and her husband James to their table. Their own anniversary celebration felt intimate and genuine, 15 years of honest love and partnership. "The view is spectacular," James commented, gesturing at the city lights twinkling below their 10th floor perch. "It should be for these prices," Maribel chuckled, opening her menu. Her eye caught movement at a corner table, and her heart stopped. "Oh my God, what's wrong?" James followed her gaze. There sat her sister Laurel, definitely not at her office handling the Johnson account crisis. She wore a crimson dress that seemed to deliberately draw attention, her body language intimate as she leaned toward her companion, a younger man Maribel didn't recognize. As they watched, he reached across the table to feed her a chocolate-covered strawberry, his fingers lingering near her lips. "James," Maribel whispered, her hands shaking. "That's my sister." With someone who is definitely not Rodney. James's jaw tightened. "Are you sure it's her? I bought her that dress for her birthday." Maribel felt sick. She told me she was wearing it to surprise Rodney on their anniversary tonight. They watched as Kurt, though they didn't know his name, yet poured more champagne into Laurel's glass. Her sister's laugh carried across the restaurant, loud and careless. "Take pictures," James muttered. "Rodney needs to know." Maribel's hands trembled as she raised her phone, capturing several clear shots of the couple. The distinctive city skyline through the windows provided irrefutable proof of time and location. In one photo, Laurel kissed her companion passionately, their fingers intertwined on the table. "I can't believe she's doing this to Rodney," Maribel's voice cracked. "He's the best thing that ever happened to her." James reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Send them to Rodney. He deserves to know." At Metropolitan Children's Hospital, Rodney Norman was preparing for his afternoon surgery when his phone buzzed with Maribel's message. He'd just changed into fresh scrubs, his medical team waiting in OR 3 for a complex spinal procedure on a 7-year-old patient. The first image loaded, and the surgical instruments he'd been organizing clattered to the floor. His colleague, Dr. Loren Walker, looked up sharply from the surgical notes she was reviewing. "Rodney? What's wrong?" He stared at his phone, each new image feeling like a physical blow. 20 years of marriage, of trust, of building a life together shattered in an instant. The worst part was how happy Laurel looked, how carefree in her betrayal. "I need 5 minutes," he managed, his voice eerily calm. "Can you start the prep?" Loren nodded, concern evident in her eyes. She'd known Rodney for 15 years, had seen him handle the most stressful surgeries with unwavering composure. Something was terribly wrong. In his office, Rodney sat heavily in his chair, methodically examining each photo. His medical training kicked in, helping him compartmentalize the emotional tsunami threatening to overwhelm him. He typed a message to Maribel. "Don't confront her. I have a plan." Next, he pulled up his contacts and called Myrna Roberts, their family lawyer. "Myrna, it's Rodney Norman. Remember that morality clause we added to the prenup 5 years ago? I need you to activate it. Now." "Dr. Norman?" Myrna sounded surprised. "Are you certain? Check your email in 2 minutes. You'll understand." He forwarded Maribel's photos. "I want everything ready by tonight, whatever it costs." After hanging up, Rodney stood and walked to the small bathroom attached to his office. He splashed cold water on his face, straightened his scrubs, and examined his reflection. The man in the mirror looked exactly the same as he had this morning, but everything had changed. His phone buzzed again. Laurel, sending a casual text about working late on the Johnson account. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, it made him wonder how long this had been going on. "Focus," he told his reflection. "You have a 7-year-old waiting for you to fix her spine. Handle that first. Then destroy your wife's world." The operating room lights blazed overhead as Rodney made the first incision in his young patient's back. His hands moved with their usual precision, each cut exact, each movement deliberate. To his team's eyes, he was the same confident surgeon he'd always been. "Retractor," he called out, his voice steady. Only Loren, assisting on the surgery, noticed the subtle tension in his jaw. For hours later, as they closed the final suture, Loren spoke quietly. "Beautiful work as always." "Thank you." Rodney stepped back from the table, letting the residents complete the dressing. "Could you handle the post-op notes? I have some urgent personal matters to attend to." "Of course." Loren followed him into the scrub room. As they washed up, she hesitated. "Rodney, if you need anything, I need information." His voice was low, meant only for her. "That real estate developer who spoke at the hospital fundraiser 6 months ago, Kurt Kennedy. What do you know about him?" Lauren's eyes widened slightly. "Some. My brother's law firm handled one of his divorces. Not his first, from what I heard. Find out everything you can." Rodney dried his hands with mechanical precision, especially about his pattern with married women. Understanding dawned on Lauren's face. "Oh, Rodney, I'm so sorry. Don't be." His smile was cold. "Just help me make sure they both regret ever meeting." In his office, Rodney began making calls. First to their bank, where he'd maintained a friendly relationship with the manager for decades. "George, remember those contingency plans we discussed a few months ago? It's time." Next was Harvey Evans, a forensic accountant he'd met through a patient's parent. "Harvey, I need a complete audit of my wife's financial activities for the past year. Every account, every transaction. I want to know where every penny has gone." His phone buzzed with a text from Maribel. "They're still here." Getting very handsy. "Want me to say something?" "No," he replied. "Stay quiet. Watch them. Note everything. I need to know their patterns." The sun was setting outside his office window when Myrna Roberts called back. "The morality clause is ironclad, Rodney. She signed it without a second glance 5 years ago. With these photos as evidence, she loses everything: the house, her claim to your assets, any right to alimony." "Perfect." Rodney leaned back in his chair. "Draw up the papers. I want them ready for tomorrow." His phone lit up with another text from Laurel. "Working late, honey. Don't wait up. This Johnson crisis is a nightmare." He stared at the message, marveling at her audacity. Somewhere in the city, his wife of 20 years was in another man's arms, thinking herself clever, protected, secure in her deceptions. "Oh, Laurel," he murmured, closing his laptop. "You have no idea what's coming." He had one more surgery scheduled, a routine appendectomy. After that, he would begin dismantling the life Laurel took for granted, piece by methodical piece. 20 years of trust hadn't just been broken. It had been surgically excised. Now it was time for the consequences. As he walked back to the oar, his phone buzzed one final time. A message from Loren. "Found something interesting about Kennedy. He's got major debt problems. Want to meet for coffee tomorrow morning? There's more." "Perfect," Rodney typed back. 7 a.m. "Bring everything you have." The operating room doors swung open, and Dr. Rodney Norman stepped through, every inch the consummate professional. But behind his surgical mask, a small, cold smile played at the corners of his mouth. The storm was gathering, and neither Laurel nor her young lover would see it coming until it was far too late. The fluorescent lights of Metropolitan Children's Hospital's coffee shop cast harsh shadows across the manila folders spread between Rodney and Loren Walker. It was 6:45 a.m., and they'd claimed the corner table, the one Rodney knew was just out of earshot of other early morning staff. "Kurt Kennedy," Loren began, her voice clinical as if presenting a complicated diagnosis. 35 years old, CEO of Kennedy Development Group. "What's interesting is his pattern. It's practically surgical in its precision." She laid out 3 photographs. These were his previous targets. Caroline Mitchell, age 44, CFO of Brighton Technologies. Patricia Henderson, 46, senior partner at Marshall Law. And Elizabeth Cooper, 45, chief investment officer at First Regional Bank. All successful women, Rodney noted, studying each photo. All around Laurel's age. All married to wealthy, successful men, Loren added. The divorces were brutal. Mitchell lost her position at Brighton. Henderson's law partnership dissolved. Cooper had to relocate to another state. And the men? That's where it gets interesting. Loren pulled out court documents. Kurt walked away with settlements each time. His lawyers argued that these women had used company resources, joint marital assets, to support his business ventures. The husbands were forced to buy out his shares at premium prices to protect their own reputations. Rodney's phone buzzed. Harvey Evans requesting an urgent meeting. Perfect timing. What else? His company's in trouble. 3 major projects are behind schedule. The Riverside Complex, Metropolitan Towers, and Park Place residences. Contractors are threatening liens. Investors are pulling out. Loren hesitated. There's something else. Remember that pediatric cancer fundraiser 6 months ago, where I first saw him with Laurel? I pulled the donor records. For other women on the hospital board made substantial donations to his projects that night. All married, all wealthy, all around the same age. Rodney's expression hardened. Names? Diana Phillips, Margaret Chun, Victoria Russell, and Sarah Blackwood. Give me their husband's contact information. Rodney stood. They deserve to know what their wives are funding. Across town, Maribel sat across from Laurel at C.F. Laurent, their weekly sister lunch spot. The restaurant's elegant atmosphere felt suffocating as she watched her sister brazenly lie. The Johnson team was speechless. Laurel bragged, gesturing with her fork. 20 hours of emergency revisions, but I saved the account. That's why I'm invaluable to the firm. Maribel noticed the new Van Cleef and Arpels bracelet on her sister's wrist, easily $25,000. New jewelry? Just a little reward for my hard work, Laurel smiled, touching the bracelet. Sometimes you have to celebrate your own victories. Maribel's phone vibrated silently, a text from Rodney. Look for signs of other purchases. We need everything documented. The conversation was interrupted by a call on Laurel's secret phone, poorly concealed as a business call. The Riverside investment opportunity? Yes. I can meet to discuss terms this afternoon. After Laurel left, Maribel immediately called Rodney. She's investing in his projects? I know. Rodney's voice was cold. Harvey's tracking every penny. How much did you say that bracelet was worth? In his office, Harvey Evans adjusted his bow tie as he pulled up detailed financial records. Your wife's been methodical, I'll give her that. Small transfers, usually under $10,000, spread across multiple accounts. But look at the pattern. The spreadsheet showed dozens of transactions, each corresponding to Laurel's business meetings and client emergencies. Total so far? Just over $200,000 transferred to her private account. But here's where it gets interesting. Harvey pulled up another document. 2 weeks ago, she put a $50,000 deposit on a penthouse in Kennedy's Riverside complex. Purchase price, $2.5 million. Using what funds? That's the best part. She took out a loan against her 401k in your joint investment portfolio. She's betting everything on him. Rodney smiled coldly. She always did have a gambling problem. Time to call in the markers. Harvey's investigation expanded throughout the day, each discovery revealing new layers of deception. The forensic accountant had commandeered a small conference room in Rodney's medical office, transforming it into an evidence command center. Your wife's secret credit card is a gold mine, Harvey announced as Rodney entered. Every Thursday lunch at Skyline Restaurant, always for two. But look at the timing. Charges at luxury hotels follow each business emergency. The Ritz-Carlton, for seasons, even a weekend at the Mandarin Oriental. Cost? Total hotel charges over 6 months, $46,000. All billed as client meetings to her company card. Harvey pulled up another screen. But here's where Kurt's game becomes clear. Each hotel stay coincides with a new investment in his projects. Rodney studied the correlation. Show me his company's finances. 3 stalled projects, $12 million in outstanding contractor liens, and a $500,000 loan mysteriously paid off 2 weeks ago right after Laurel's condo deposit. He's using her money to keep his company afloat, Rodney concluded, while marketing the same properties to other potential victims. Meanwhile, Maribel had infiltrated Kennedy Development Group's offices, playing the role of a potential investor. Kurt's assistant, Mindy Irwin, proved to be an unexpected ally. You want the truth about Kurt Kennedy? Mindy said, closing her office door. He's running a sophisticated con. Those luxury condos? Half-built shells with maxed-out construction loans. He needs new investors to pay off the old ones. And Laurel Cummings? Mindy's laugh was bitter. His sure thing? He's got it all mapped out. Romance her. Get her to invest everything. Then marry her once her divorce comes through. Her advertising contacts could bring in dozens of wealthy clients. But he's already married. To Rebecca Kennedy, N.E. Thompson, daughter of Thompson Real Estate Group. Daddy's money kept Kurt afloat for years, but that well's running dry. Mindy pulled out a document. Want to see something interesting? List of potential targets from our last charity gala. Every wealthy, married woman who showed interest in our projects. Back at the hospital, Loren arrived with more evidence. Those other hospital board members? All made 6-figure investments in Kennedy's projects. Diana Phillips mortgaged her beach house. Margaret Chun liquidated her children's trust funds. Victoria Russell sold her family's art collection. And their husbands? Clueless, Kurt arranged everything through private LLCs. The money's practically untraceable unless you know where to look. Rodney's phone lit up another message from Laurel, working late again. Johnson account needs final revisions. He checked the tracking app he'd installed on her secret phone. Location, the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Time to spring the trap, he murmured. Rodney stood in his home office at 8:30 p.m., surrounded by the evidence of his meticulous planning. The crystal trash, an extravagant wedding gift from Laurel's parents, sat centered on his desk under carefully arranged lighting. His phone buzzed with updates from his assembled team. Harvey, all accounts flagged. Any large transactions will freeze automatically. Loren, medical board notified about potential fraud involving hospital donors. Maribel, Kurt and Laurel at Skyline. Same corner table. Myrna, divorce papers ready. Morality clause documentation complete. He placed the wedding rings in the crystal trash can, positioning them for maximum impact. 20 years of marriage, reduced to a staged photograph. But the symbolism would hit Laurel hard. She'd always cared more about appearances than substance. At precisely 8:45 p.m., he took the photo. The composition was deliberate. Platinum bands gleaming against crystal. Wealth turned to waste. His message was equally calculated. You deserve each other. Enjoy. But guess what? You're now homeless. Your sister has something to say. As he pressed send, Maribel executed her part of the plan. Her email was comprehensive. Photos from Skyline, financial records from Harvey, documentation of Kurt's pattern with married women, evidence of misappropriated hospital donations, and statements from his previous victims. Recipients: Rebecca Kennedy, Kurt's business partners, his board of directors, and most devastating Thompson Real Estate Group's executive board. Package delivered, Maribel texted. In his office, Rodney initiated the final protocols. The house had been systematically stripped of Laurel's presence, photos removed, clothes packed, personal items stored. Even her beloved garden had been replanted, her prized roses replaced with stark modern landscaping. His phone exploded with activity. Rebecca Kennedy, evidence received. Divorce proceedings initiated. Thompson Real Estate, emergency board meeting called for 7 a.m. Kurt's business partners. Project funding suspended pending investigation. Hospital board, audit of all recent donations commenced. And finally, Laurel's frantic calls began. He let each one ring through to voicemail, imagining her rising panic as her carefully constructed world imploded. Myrna Roberts' message appeared. Everything's in place. Court orders ready for morning filing. She'll be served at her office tomorrow. Rodney poured himself a glass of Macallan, 25, Laurel's last anniversary gift to him. The irony felt appropriate. Tomorrow, she would learn the true cost of underestimating him. Her lover would abandon her. Her assets would be frozen. Her reputation destroyed. To new beginnings, he toasted silently, watching his phone light up with her increasingly desperate messages. The trap had sprung perfectly. Now all that remained was to watch them fall. Laurel's Mercedes screeched into the circular driveway at 9:15 p.m., tires marking the pristine pavement her gardener had just pressure-washed yesterday morning. Her trembling fingers jabbed repeatedly at the garage door opener, the plastic cracking under her manicured nails. Nothing. Through the garage windows, she noted both her Range Rover and Rodney's BMW were gone. The space looked eerily empty, the walls stripped of their usual tools and garden equipment. This can't be happening, she muttered, her Louboutin heels clicking against the concrete as she hurried to the front door. The security system's keypad blinked red, rejecting her code 3 times before displaying access denied in harsh LED letters. Her house key, the ornate Tiffany one Rodney had given her on their 15th anniversary, wouldn't turn in the lock. Through the leaded glass panels, the foyer stretched empty and alien. The walls gaped with pale rectangles where family photos had hung for 2 decades. Her curated art collection, worth over $500,000, had vanished. Even the antique console table, a wedding gift from Rodney's parents, was gone. The Italian marble floors reflected nothing but emptiness. Her phone exploded with notifications. 20 missed calls from Kurt. 30 text messages. 5 voicemails. 3 emails marked urgent. As she stared at the screen, Kurt's name flashed again. She answered with shaking hands. What the hell is happening? His voice crackled with barely controlled panic. Your sister just destroyed everything. My wife, my board. Everyone has those photos. Kurt, I can't get into my house. Nothing's working, the garage, the alarm, the locks. Forget your damn house, he snapped. The Thompson Group executives are calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. They know about the money, Laurel. All of it. What money? You said those investments were secure. You promised. Nothing's secure now. Kurt's laugh turned cruel. The board's freezing all accounts pending investigation. Projects worth millions are stalling. And you know what? It's your fault. You couldn't keep your sister away from that restaurant. You had to show off, didn't you? My fault? Laurel's voice rose hysterically. You pursued me. All those promises about our future. Business meetings, Kurt cut in coldly. That's all they were. Just a desperate, aging woman misinterpreting innocent business discussions. That's what my lawyers will say. And trust me, they'll be very convincing. Headlights swept across the property as two cars pulled in Maribel's Range Rover and a sleek Audi she recognized as Myrna Roberts. Laurel spun to face them, mascara tracking black rivers down her cheeks, her crimson dress suddenly feeling like a scarlet letter. How could you? She screamed at Maribel. I'm your sister. Your own blood. Exactly. Maribel emerged, clutching a thick manila envelope. Her expression held no warmth. I'm your sister, which means I couldn't watch you destroy yourself with that con artist. You want to talk about blood? Let's talk about how you've betrayed every single person who ever loved you. The envelope hit Laurel's chest with a solid thwack. Inside, divorce papers lay atop a mountain of evidence. Hotel receipts spanning 6 months, credit card statements showing purchases at luxury boutiques, phone records documenting hundreds of calls to Kurt, bank transfers moving joint assets to private accounts. Remember that morality clause Rodney added to your prenup? Myrna Roberts' voice cut through the night air as she approached, her heels clicking a deadly rhythm. The one you signed without reading because you trusted him so completely? It stipulates that in case of infidelity, you forfeit all rights to community property and alimony. Kurt Kennedy paced his corner office at Kennedy Development Group, watching dawn break over the city. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing since last night. His wife Rebecca's lawyers, board members demanding explanations, investors threatening to pull out. Each message was another nail in his professional coffin. The door burst open without warning. Rebecca Kennedy stood there, elegant in a tailored black suit, her fury barely contained beneath her polished exterior. The Thompson board just voted unanimously. They're freezing all funding to your projects, effective immediately. Becca, this is all a misunderstanding. Save it for your lawyers. She cut him off, tossing a stack of papers onto his desk. Every project account is frozen. Your office access will be revoked in 1 hour. The locks at home are already changed, and your credit cards are canceled. You can't do this. Kurt's voice rose, his carefully maintained facade cracking. Those projects are worth millions. The contracts were worth millions, Rebecca corrected icily. Now they're worth whatever the creditors can salvage at auction. By the way, Laurel Norman wasn't the only married woman you targeted. Was she? The hospital board is quite interested in those donations you solicited from their female members. Did you really think no one would connect the dots? Kurt's phone lit up with another call from Laurel. He rejected it with a savage jab. His assistant Mindy appeared in the doorway, her expression grim, a security team visible behind her. The board's waiting in the main conference room, she announced. They've requested all your files and passwords. And sir, security's here to escort you out afterward. Across town, Laurel sat in her office at Pierce and Morgan Advertising, attempting damage control. Her corporate credit cards had been declined at the Marriott last night, canceled overnight. Her private account was frozen, Rodney's lawyers having proved it was funded with joint assets. Her office phone buzzed. Miss Cummings? The partners would like to see you immediately. In the boardroom, managing partner David Pierce looked grave, flanked by the other senior partners. Laurel, we've received some disturbing information. The Johnson account claims they never requested emergency revisions. In fact, they're quite happy with their approved campaign. I can explain. You used a fictitious client emergency to cover personal activities. Senior partner Sarah Morgan interrupted, her voice sharp. Activities that have now embroiled this firm in a public scandal. Our integrity is everything in this business. I've brought in millions in accounts, Laurel protested weakly. And now those accounts are calling, concerned about their relationship with a firm that employs someone of questionable ethics. David slid a document across the table. We're placing you on indefinite leave, effective immediately. 1 month later, Laurel stood at her apartment window, watching rain streak the glass. The view wasn't her pristine landscaping, but a parking lot and dumpster. Her designer wardrobe had been replaced by department store basics, her luxury car traded for a used Honda. Every morning, she checked job listings, but her reputation preceded her. The TV droned in the background local news covering the launch of Metropolitan Children's Hospital's new surgical foundation. Rodney stood at the podium, looking impeccable in his surgical whites. This foundation will ensure that no child is denied critical care due to financial constraints, he was saying, his voice steady and confident. The camera panned to show Maribel beside him, then focused on a striking woman in a lab coat, Dr. Rosalie Hathaway, renowned pediatric neurosurgeon. Dr. Norman and Dr. Hathaway's collaboration has already attracted significant donations, the reporter announced enthusiastically. Their innovative approach to pediatric care. Laurel clicked off the TV, but not before seeing Rodney and Rosalie exchange warm smiles. Her phone, now a basic model, showed a news alert. Rebecca Kennedy's tell-all book, Surviving Infidelity, hits bestseller list. She'd read an advance excerpt. Her story featured prominently the foolish executive who traded 20 years of marriage for a con man's empty promises. Kurt hadn't contacted her since that night, though she'd seen news of his divorce and professional ruin. His project stood abandoned, his investors launching lawsuits. The microwave dinged tonight's solitary dinner of reheated pasta. Through her window, she could see couples heading to the restaurant she used to frequent. Her sister's words from last week's rejected lunch invitation echoed. You did this to yourself, Laurel. Every choice, every lie, every betrayal, they were all yours. Rebecca Kennedy's book became a nationwide sensation, its cautionary tale resonating with readers everywhere. The chapter titled The VP and the Con Man painted an unflinching portrait of ambition, infidelity, and consequences. Kurt's other victims came forward, each story revealing new layers of his calculated predation. Rodney's foundation thrived, its success amplified by his collaboration with Rosalie. Their professional partnership evolved naturally into something deeper, built on shared values and genuine trust. Maribel stood beside them at charity galas, their bond stronger for having weathered the storm together. In her modest apartment, Laurel watched their success from afar, understanding too late the magnitude of what she'd lost. Her microwave hummed, heating another solitary meal, while across town, Rodney and Rosalie shared homemade risotto and honest laughter, their future bright with possibilities she could no longer claim. Extended epilogue, 5 years later. The winter wind whipped around Laurel's threadbare coat as she hurried from the bus stop to her small accounting firm. At 49, her once perfect highlights had faded to gray, her designer wardrobe replaced by clearance rack finds. The nameplate on her desk read, Junior Accountant, a position she'd finally secured after 3 years of temporary work and rejected applications. Her phone buzzed a news alert about Rebecca Kennedy's second book. After the affair, Stories of Survival had just hit the bestseller list, following her first book's explosive success. Laurel skimmed the article, her stomach churning at the familiar phrases. Most notorious case study, calculated deception, systematic exploitation of wealthy women. Chapter 6, she knew, would detail her own downfall. Rebecca had interviewed everyone, the hotel staff who'd witnessed her tryst with Kurt, the banking officials who'd tracked her financial deceptions, even her former colleagues at Pierce and Morgan. The story had become a cautionary tale taught in ethics seminars. Across town, at Metropolitan Children's Hospital's new wing funded largely by the Norman Hathaway Foundation, Rodney finished his morning rounds. At 53, He'd become one of the country's leading pediatric surgeons. His marriage to Dr. Rosalie Hathaway 2 years ago had made medical headlines. Their combined expertise had revolutionized several childhood surgical procedures. Dr. Norman? His assistant handed him the morning paper. Your foundation made the front page again. The article detailed their latest achievement, a nationwide program providing free surgical care to underprivileged children. Photos showed Rodney and Rosalie at the launch gala, their genuine happiness evident. Maribel stood beside them, now the foundation's executive director, her own marriage stronger for having chosen loyalty over blood ties. In a minimum security prison in Nevada, Kurt Kennedy stared at the same newspaper. For years into his 8-year sentence for investment fraud, he'd lost everything. The investigations triggered by his affair with Laurel had uncovered a decade of financial crimes. His victims, all wealthy, married women, had testified one by one, revealing his pattern of seduction and exploitation. Rebecca's divorce had stripped him of every asset. The Thompson Group's lawsuits had buried him in debt. His children refused contact. His cellmate's radio crackled with an interview Rebecca discussing her new book tour, her voice strong and confident as she described rebuilding her life. Back at her desk, Laurel opened her personal email, still using her maiden name, the Norman surname long ago stripped away. An invitation from her niece's wedding coordinator sat unopened. Maribel's daughter was getting married at La Maison, the same restaurant where Laurel's own marriage had begun. She wouldn't attend, couldn't bear to see Rodney and Rosalie there, their happiness a stark reminder of her choices. Her lunch break took her past the abandoned Riverside complex, Kurt's final project, now a decaying shell. The luxury condos had never been completed. Her $50,000 deposit, like her dreams of a new life with Kurt, had evaporated. Sometimes she saw other women lingering here, former investors like herself, all haunted by their own versions of the same story. At the hospital, Rodney and Rosalie reviewed plans for their next medical mission. Their 3-year-old daughter, Sophie, played in their shared office, her toys scattered between medical journals and surgical schedules. They'd gotten it right this time, building a partnership on trust, respect, and shared purpose. "Did you see Rebecca's new book is out?" Rosalie asked, scrolling through her tablet. Maribel mentioned it, Rodney replied. Apparently, the new chapters about Kurt's other victims are even more damning than the first book. Investigation records had revealed Kurt's true scope. 27 women over 12 years, each targeted for their wealth and position. The pattern was always the same: romantic manipulation, financial exploitation, and calculated abandonment. Laurel had simply been the one who'd triggered his downfall. That evening, Rebecca Kennedy signed books at a crowded Barnes & Noble. At 40, she'd transformed her pain into purpose, becoming a prominent advocate for fraud victims. Her foundation helped women rebuild after similar betrayals, offering legal support and financial counseling. The hardest part, she told her audience, isn't losing the money or status. It's realizing you were just another mark in a con man's game. In his prison cell, Kurt watched the sun set through barred windows. His last appeal had been denied. His former partners had turned state's evidence, revealing offshore accounts and shell companies stretching back years. Even after his release, the restitution payments would keep him destitute for life. Laurel's microwave dinner that night was interrupted by another news alert. Pearson Morgan had been acquired by a larger firm. The article mentioned their complete ethical overhaul following the notorious Norman Kennedy scandal. Her name had become synonymous with professional disgrace, a permanent cautionary tale in corporate circles. At the Norman Hathaway home, family dinner was in full swing. Sophie's laughter mixed with adult conversation as Maribel and her husband joined them for their weekly gathering. The dining room, once the stage for Laurel's elaborate deceptions, now hosted genuine warmth and connection. The Foundation's new pediatric center opens next month, Maribel announced, showing Sophie pictures of the playroom she'd helped design. Perfect timing. Rosalie smiled, her hand finding Rodney's. Just in time for the new addition. As congratulations flowed, Laurel sat alone in her apartment, reading job listings and apartment ads. Her current building was being converted to condos, another forced downsizing looming. Her resume, gaps concealed by creative wording, landed more rejections than interviews. Her sister's words from years ago still rang true. Every choice, every lie, every betrayal had been hers alone. The years had distributed justice with mathematical precision. Kurt's victims had received partial restitution, their stories validated by Rebecca's advocacy. The Norman Hathaway Foundation had transformed pediatric care access nationwide. Maribel's loyalty had been rewarded with purpose and deeper family bonds. And Laurel? She'd learned that karma wasn't just spiritual, it was financial, professional, and social. Her choices had compounded like toxic interest, leaving her to survive on the margins of the life she'd once owned. Every morning, she passed newsstands displaying Rebecca's books, walked by buildings bearing the Norman Hathaway Foundation logo, lived with the echoing consequences of betraying those who loved her most. In their respective circles, life moved forward. Rodney and Rosalie expanded their medical innovations, their marriage proving that trust and authenticity bred success. Maribel guided the foundation's growth, her family celebrating milestones Laurel only witnessed through social media. Rebecca's advocacy career soared, her books becoming required reading in business ethics courses. Only Kurt and Laurel remained frozen in the aftermath of their choices. He counted days in his prison cell, watching his victims thrive through newspaper headlines. She counted pennies in her studio apartment, watching her past life dissolve into cautionary anecdotes. They gambled with other people's trust and lost everything, a mathematical certainty that no amount of time could erase. Their story, preserved in Rebecca's books and ethics seminars, served its purpose, showing that karma wasn't mystical, but mathematical, delivering consequences with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel and the permanence of a prison sentence. In the end, they'd written their own epilogues with choices masquerading as love, destroying lives with lies packaged as dreams. Their legacy wasn't in what they'd built, but in what they'd broken, a testament